piece here, I cut at 45-degree angles, so when I've got the 4 pieces put together, it creates a box
We need
like
to see
this.
that in action. That's an artist in
And
action
this
right
is
there.
the finished piece that's already glued up. And from that stage, the next part is I glue this piece of veneer on. And as far as color, I don't use any color except some of this is painted wood veneer. But that's simply so when I glue it on here, as such, this is going to create an oval on my picture here. It's like a picture frame. When I finish that part, then I come back to the outside and I put the inlays on it. And of course I put the dark one with the white. In this case it'll be the nativity scene, and I call this my gospel ornament because it's Christ's birth. And then I put the white over the red, and this is Christ in the garden. And then next I'll put Christ going to his crucifixion, carrying the cross. And finally I glue up the resurrection from the cross. So this is a jet mini lathe that I use on a lot of my just demonstrations when I'm doing demonstrations. And I put the glued up box on here, and I'm going to be turning around 900 to 1,000 RPM. And I'm going to use a bowl gouge first, and the whole purpose is just to get that box round. We still have a couple of flat spots, but at this point it's not going to make any difference. I'm going to go ahead and I want to move it to where a different chuck so that I can work on the ends and the inside next. So now, and just to protect you in case it does fly off, I'm going to lock that down a little bit. I'm going to use a Woodturner, which is just, it's a flat chisel type of thing, and that's just to get it flat on the end. I'm letting the tool do the work, but I put just enough to push it into the wood. If you get too aggressive, the wood's going to argue with you, and but too weak, you aren't really cutting. So it's just on different bowls or whatever, it requires different pressure points on it, and you just gain a little bit of a feel for what you're doing. Now I didn't put quite as much pressure on it then because I didn't have this on the end here. What I'm going to do next is I've got to find the center of the ornament. And I like to use the millimeters because I can divide by 10 a whole lot easier. So it's 76, so that's going to be about 33. And then from that center, I want to come out about 30, 33, 30. What I've done is I've located the center of the ornament, and now I'm just scribing a line around it. Now, parted that off, so I want to go to the other end and do the same thing. If I were cutting on here and I had to sneeze or itch or scratch or whatever, the first thing I'd do is shut off the lathe and back away from it and take care of whatever business I had. Sometimes you don't have that option because a sneeze doesn't always tell you when it's coming in. But on a big piece, it usually, I don't have enough pressure that it's usually going to damage or create any real problem. But on a, when I get to the tail part here, and down to the real thin, I turn off my phone because I don't want any vibration. I don't want anything to disturb me. On the inside, and that's just to take away extra weight. At this point, I want to put a angle in here because I'm going to make an end piece to cover up this hole when I'm making the ornament. So I want to make about a 45-degree angle cut right into the end of the ornament. And what that'll do is gives me a flat place where I can, when I'm doing the end piece, I'll cut another angle and I'll measure it to fit this and glue it up. So it's just got a glue spot on it. And I'll turn it over and I'll do the same thing to this end. The thing you want to be particularly careful here is not to come through the side of your ornament, which that'll mess it up, and there's not a whole lot of fixing when that happens. So again, I cut a 45-degree angle, and that'll give me something to glue to. The angle on my ornament. So now I've got to make an end piece to cover up that hole. I have to test it to see if my angle's right. And I'll hold this on there and it'll burn a line into my end. And I can tell the line's just starting here. It's not real deep yet, but that's fine. It means that I've got to cut off the top just a little bit because the angle's not exactly right. On some parts, the sound does tell me what I'm doing, and in this case, I'm listening to the sound that it's a smooth, constant vibration. So this is simply a chuck, quarter-inch drill in chuck. But now what I do is I put it in here and I'm checking the edge to be sure there's no light, that it's fitting in good. And then I get the light down on the inside to be sure it's fitting perfect. If it's a degree or two off, it won't fit right. And the next step I'll do is I got to glue this up. And I just take a stove bolt. I want to be sure I've got the bottom first. So that's the bottom. And I put my bolt through it. Then I want to be sure I put the bottom of my ornament up here. And then the top of the ornament. Put a washer on it. And then I screw this down. Now I put a bead of glue around both ends so that I'm gluing this up. And once I've got that bead of glue, I tighten the stove bolt up, and it'll sit that way overnight until I've got this. Now this one's I've already glued up, exactly the same thing. So now I'm ready to actually make the ornament out of this, but I've got to change my chuck. At this point I'm going to stop again because now I'm going to be interested in the separation. I don't want to cut into my images here, but I want a complete separation that's going to be even. Here you can see it's a little rough, means I got to cut a little more off on this end. So this is telling me where I'm going to need to adjust. And the first part I'm going to make is the tailstock. That's the longer piece. It all starts from a piece of wood that I've just squared up. It's about 5.5 inches long, and then this one is called bloodwood. That's some wood I have to buy out of South America or Africa, but it gives a nice, pretty red wood. That's about right. I want that thickness so that it'll match up to this end. So I started turning on this a little bit the other day, but I'm going to finish it now. I just want to get it smooth. What I'm making here is the tail, and on this gospel ornament, I call it that because I'm using this to represent the 3 spikes that we used in the crucifixion. That's what I do mostly, ornaments, and you know, I get bored if I do the same thing over and over all the time. That's why I have basically 3 kinds of ornaments. I've got what's called the inlay ornaments that have the picture on it. I've got the segmented ornaments that have the different colors. And then I've got some that I just call a globe ornament, where I just take a limb, piece of wood like that, and I'll put it on and just cut it round, hollow it out, and put a tail on it. And it's just one piece. It takes an hour to make one out of that, because there's no gluing up or anything other than gluing the tail piece into it. Thank the Tifton Museum of Arts and Heritage, because they celebrate creativity for the last 4 years. I sell more of my items that day than I do the rest of the year.